Hi everyone, welcome back to Startups Confidential. No guest speaker in this episode, but today we're going to be celebrating the 20th anniversary of the Justice League TV series. To many, this is considered one of, if not the best interpretation of this superhero team. Of course, the production of this was made thanks to Bruce Timm and his team. After working on Batman, Superman, and Batman Beyond, they decided to make this series take place after Superman the Animated Series chronologically. This gave the writers a chance to flesh out the rest of the League's roster, for everyone knows Batman and Superman stories. But what about Wonder Woman, Flash, Green Lantern, Hawkgirl, and of course, Martian Manhunter, who is definitely one of the major highlights of the series. So, for when the show started, it has a typical kind of meet and greet for the superhero team to form, where it's usually because of a bigger threat that requires more than one hero to handle it. And in this case, it is an alien invasion force that destroyed Jean's home world. Through his telepathic powers, he summoned the other heroes to come to his aid in order to stop their conquest of Earth. Through this, of course, they managed to have the Watchtower being built to detect of any other invasions from space, and they decided to call themselves the Justice League. Of course, Batman would stay as a part-timer, but still, I like that for season 1, we got pretty much good focus on the other members of the League. Most notably, Wonder Woman, Jean, and even GL a bit. But I gotta say, for Martian Manhunter, he definitely stuck out the most. Like Batman, he suffered a great tragedy with losing his family and his people, which is also like Superman, but what's worse for Jean is that he saw his whole world being destroyed. And we see that he struggles, but he does try to adapt to living on Earth, especially when it came to where he was given the opportunity to have his world back. But as Jean quoted, the price was too high. After Jean, Wonder Woman would be my second favorite character, because she does have a bit of a Pocahontas kind of like story where she wants to explore more of the outside world. Unfortunately, that came at a cost in a later story where the evil sorcerer Felix Faust was turning all the Amazons to stone to find the key to unlock the door to Tartarus, Hades' dimension. Because of that, Diana had to break the rules of her island by bringing in men to Themyscira. Of course, the queen is thankful for their help in the end, but because of that, Hippolyta had no choice but to banish Diana from Themyscira. As a kid, I always thought, why? I mean, it's your daughter, but she is the queen first and foremost. She can't make exceptions for anyone, not even her daughter. It's a tough decision, but Diana handled it proudly. Of course, when we get Justice Unlimited, they managed to patch things up. I think as far as my third favorite new hero at the time, I was probably to guess Green Lantern, but he didn't start out that way. I mean, he was kind of a bit of a stick in the mud compared to the rest, but he had to be a good character foil with the Flash, for the Flash was pretty much the comedic banter for the League. As for Hawkgirl, not much to show, at least for season 1. She was basically the more shoot first, or in this case, bash first, ask questions later. But eventually we get to see the budding romance between her and GL. So it's a pretty good setup, and not just even the League, with other characters too. Most notably, Aquaman. Because as the producers stated, Aquaman was basically became Conan underwater. For before this, Aquaman was seen as a comedic character where he's like a funny guy that talks to fish. Here we see that the only people that he respects are mostly Atlanteans. As far as surface dwellers, doesn't have much compassion for them. But he is a king. He has a duty to his people. And that's really how the show handles certain things when it comes to responsibilities and your feelings. You can't really have them both ways. They have to make a choice. And it was definitely pretty badass, I would say, for Aquaman to pretty much cut off his own hand when he was chained up to a falling debris in order to save him and his son. I don't think I've seen that done ever on TV, animation-wise, that is. And he even got to be more of a badass with a hook hand. As far as for other episodes to stand out from season 1, I would say, in some ways, I guess the In Blackest Night episode, I mean, in comparison to the rest, nothing much too standoffish, but still, having a character being arrested for mass genocide just right after the series premiere, that's pretty something to start out, especially for Green Lantern being put in a position where he feels he's guilty, even though in the end it was a farce. Despite him being a stick in the mud, he'll pretty much do whatever it takes to make up for his mistakes, even means throwing away his own life. See, for other episodes stand out, from season 1, I would say Injustice for All, This is the first time in the show we got a good connection to previous DC shows with Lex Luthor and the Joker. Mostly for Lex, because here we get to see that Lex is finally revealed to be a corrupt businessman and got to be legitimately arrested. He now has nothing to lose because of the amount of krypton he's kept over the years is pretty much giving him blood cancer. Because of that, he is devoting all of his resources, all of his energy to destroying the Justice League. In this case, he forms the Injustice Gang, filled up several new villain characters I've never seen before. And of course, the Joker does ring his ugly head in, and because of Joker's help, they managed to capture Batman. For it looks like the Joker here is pretty much wise to Batman's tricks, especially with the little tracker. This episode definitely proved that Batman is capable of handling certain things, even without powers. But I'll always laugh when the fact that Superman benched Batman when it came to interrogating. I mean, yes, he did get poisoned, but still. Interrogation is one of Batman's biggest strengths, and you're putting in the best guy to handle it on the sidelines? I mean, come on, Soups. And his interrogation is no good either unless you're going to do like heat vision or do something really drastic. Though I would say Hawkgirl's pretty good at interrogation. It's probably some of a tie between her and Batman. They're going to be, some of them have some moments, like for Brave and the Bold, it's nothing much that really stands out. Really the most memorable part is how the Flash beat him, because Flash has shown that he's not really the most intelligent person in comparison to the other members of the League, or even certain villains. But he managed to outsmart Grodd, like when he taps Grodd's head, he rewired Grodd's mind control helmet. And when Flash took off the headband as a cocky means of showing off, Grodd tries to mind control, but it pretty much short-circuited his brain. Unfortunately, that does come back to haunt the League, but we'll come back to that later. But still, it shows that Flash is pretty capable, and that when push comes to shove, he will step up. The most notable episodes that would have to be Legends, for it does the usual kind of classic team-up shenanigans between two different groups. But then when we get to the part where Justice Guild's reality is an illusion, it leads you thinking, like, who could cause this? And they left no signs as to who could really be behind this, because I didn't think it would be the kid Ray. That took me by surprise. But once John figured it out and revealed him to be this grotesque nuclear thing, it was like, whoa, God. that was something. Even though that for the Justice Guild they weren't really real because the real ones died years ago in a war, they still sacrificed themselves to stop Ray and save their reality. It's pretty something. Not to mention this was a tribute to Gardner Fox, who is responsible for creating the Justice League and several other superheroes for DC ever since. Besides that, for season 1 I would say Fury, because not only is another Wonder Woman focused episode, it's interesting how we have this woman, Arisha, based on the character Fury, created an allergen that kills off men specifically. Gotta say, the plan is pretty nuts. I mean, making the whole world Themyscira, that's not going to work because the Amazons are pretty much eternally young as long as they stay on the island. For Arisha to do this, she's basically endangering the whole human race. But given with her backstory, it is somewhat understandable why she would hate that, especially for the rest of her childhood to grow up in a society with no men. And it was nice to see a little bit team up between the only 2 women members of the League. After that, the only other big one would have to be the season 1 finale, The Savage Time. Because here, Vandal Savage definitely is one of the few villains in Justice League that stand out the most. Tyrant-wise, he's similar to Grodd, but unlike Grodd, Vandal gets stuff done. At the start, he already accomplished his goal by altering the course of history in World War II by replacing Hitler. Because of this, the League had to go back into the past to stop Vandal's interference. And I feel like for here, they definitely managed to step up more of their game, because it's not just one or two moments. Here we get to see that the League is put in more dire situations, mostly with GL, for his power ring ran out of juice, and from there, John had to rely on his own skills and strengths to survive. Not to mention, the whole aspect of them being in World War II, it's pretty much how superheroes started out in the first place, for they were created during World War II, especially for Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, and the rest of the Justice Society historically. In a way, you could see this story as what inspired people to make those comic books in the first place, all thanks to time travel. And of course, we get a pretty good Wonder Woman subplot where she encounters Steve Trevor in World War II. Kind of similar to what they did in the Wonder Woman movie in 2017. I always find it intriguing how Wonder Woman is attracted to regular men, whereas there are more superpowered ones. But it actually kind of makes sense because for Wonder Woman, she grew up with her sisters who are just about as strong as her. Well, somewhat about. So she's used to seeing how everyone resolves it with their own powers, but seeing people without any special talents or powers, she sees it more as a curiosity as to how they're able to do that without being afraid much, or at least showing that much fear. And I like that after the conflict is resolved and history is restored, Dinah visits Steve in the present, where fortunately he is alive, and even though history has been altered, for while people do remember the League from the past, they managed to make sure the history remains intact, where the world is not now conquered by a tyrant. But now we get to season 2, where, in my opinion, this season stands out on its own for many reasons, because here, every character's limit is put to the test in almost every episode, especially Superman. Because we got Twilight, where Darkseid rears his ugly head in. This is the first time we get callbacks to how S.T.A.R ended, with Darkseid ruining Superman's reputation. Of course, he gets back by the time Justice League starts, but Superman still carries a grudge. So much so that he was actually willing to kill him after the latest debacle in this episode. They use a typical bad guy team-up surprise, but then Darkseid actually tricks Brainiac for his own methods to find the anti-life equation. This episode is another example of how Darkseid's type of villain that will do whatever it takes to accomplish his goals, especially betraying allies and killing subordinates that dare question his motives. The next one would be with the Justice Lord Superman, how he killed Lex Luthor after whatever he did with the Flash, which it bothers me that they never really explained what did Luthor do in that reality. And granted, this is not the first tyrant version of Superman, nor will be the last, but this one is definitely the most dangerous of them all. I mean, it's one thing for him to kill people like in Injustice, but to lobotomize people and to make them brainless puppets, that's pretty intense and extreme. What surprised me is that in this reality, Batman is okay with being part of a group to control everything. But it just shows that they all have the same goal. They want to make the world a better place. It's just that for the Lords, they're almost willing to do whatever it takes to make that goal possible. Same with the League. Which put the League in a difficult position where, in order to stop the Lords, they had to free Luthor from jail, give him a pardon, in order to stop their counterparts. That one was probably the second best fight of that story. The first one is against the two Batmans. You would think maybe the League Batman will win because, the League Batman's good, but the Lord's Batman pulled the dead parents card. And that's pretty low, especially when it's your alternate self. Still, even so, they managed to escape the Lord's dimension and fix their own. And we get to see that even though with the Lord's world it may be safer, it's definitely not better. Because if you're going to be controlling people even for just disturbing the peace, then you're definitely no better than the villains you faced. And even with those two, that's tip of the iceberg, because there are so many good episodes from season 2, like Tabula Rasa, where we got to see Mercy back as the new head of LexCorp, and of course with the Amazo robot, which left questionable results about his power, so to speak. Because I guess apparently in this version of Amazo, with all the powers that he observes and duplicates, that might elevate him to become more of a cosmic being, I guess, or something equivalent to a god. I mean, I don't know if that's possible because he's an android. I don't think that's even possible, but you never know with these things, how far technology could really go. See, another good one is Maid of Honor, that's another Wonder Woman-centric episode where we get to see her how she really wants to enjoy life, not just always being the hero, where she makes friends with Princess Audrey of Casnia. Only problem is, Princess Audrey is engaged to Vandal Savage, apparently the third, but as it turns out, this is not a family lineage story of revenge. It is actually the same Vandal Savage from the season 1 finale, for he's not just a regular tyrant, he is an immortal tyrant. A key clue from the season 1 finale was that Vandal received the future technology in the past from his future self. So it's a pretty good way as to not physically alter history, so to speak. But as for the present, Vandal definitely upped the stakes for not only usurping the Kazian throne, but even creating a dangerous space weapon that can make even the smallest of meteors become a deadly weapon. It even scared Green Lantern, for this kind of weapon can even blow a moon out of orbit. So yeah, that bad. And of course, this is the start of seeing the whole Batman and Wonder Woman flirtation, especially when he's as Bruce Wayne. After that, Only a Dream is a good one, for the villain Dr. Destiny is kind of basic, for he's just a grunt employee of LexCorp with dreams of grandeur to become a big shot, able to get psychic powers, but makes himself into a Skeletor ripoff, especially when there was a He-Man show around the same time. Because I mean, like, his powers are cool and all for making nightmare situations feel so real that they might die in a catatonic state. But still, I would have changed the costumes to not look like a Skeletor ripoff, but that's a minor thing. The nightmare situations were pretty intense. I would say mostly on Superman Hawkgirls, because for Hawkgirl it's pretty simple, but still, I have to admit, being trapped in the coffin, I would be pretty scared of that myself. And with Superman, it's the whole, like, how much power can he handle if he grows too powerful? That's a heavy burden to bear sometimes. The next one will have to be Eclipse. Let's see, for Eclipse, that has some pretty good funny moments. For this is definitely a Flash-centered episode, with the usual kind of shenanigans of people being brainwashed, in this case with the dangerous Black Diamond, that's based off the villain Eclipso, just instead of creating a new bad guy with powers, it's just a ancient snake people trapped within a diamond. Nice little twist there, especially for the commercials Flash was trying to do to make some extra cash. Hearts of Mine is pretty cool, especially for having Keith Davids as the voice of the bad guy Despero, because you definitely can't do wrong with having Keith Davids involved in a role. This one was definitely another good Green Lantern Hawkgirl relationship episode where John Sky's will tested against Tesra's powers, but he managed to regain control of his powers when Hawkgirl was in danger. Then we got, of course, with the Secret Society, where Grodd returns, now with his own mental powers without any helmets, where he forms his own team to combat the League. But thanks to his gifts, he's able to manipulate the moods of the League, trying to get them to not trust each other, to get easily annoyed, so much so that they actually quit. Granted, it wasn't public, but still, that's pretty something, especially not as a season finale. And I'll have to admit, as I love the climactic fight between the groups, it showcases Grodd's flaw. That, once again, he really likes to show off his skills and show off how unbeatable he is with his powers and his intelligence. If he just did away with them when they were all captured, then the world would be theirs. But still, he does a pretty good job of setting up the right team members, with having Parasite, Clayface, Giganta, Sinestro, Killer Frost, and the Shade. And through Grodd's leadership and with his own mental powers, they managed to beat the League twice out of the 3 fights they had. Then we get the Terra Beyond, which is kind of a Hawkgirl featured episode, but also Grundy, surprisingly. And you heard me right, Grundy, the evil zombie. Because you see, for Grundy, he is needed by Dr. Fate and Aquaman to seal off a portal being breached by this group of beings called the Old Ones, which are based off H.P. Lovecraft's novels. And it turns out the leader of these beings called Ithultu, who used to be worshipped by the Thanagarians, but like way before Hawkgirl was even born. What I like about this story is that it kind of plays into the whole like theme of faith here, because it kind of made Hawkgirl pretty much like an atheist, for she was questioning how Diane gained so much confidence by calling to her gods for help. So it's good to see that for Hawkgirl, while she usually is pretty confident in herself with her abilities, she often questions like, can she handle this all on her own? But for this story, she definitely showcases she can step up, for her mace is pretty handy against magical users like Dr. Fate. So I'd say that's someone to have around if Superman has to deal with any magical threats. But still, the biggest surprise is probably Grundy. I mean, he has his own reasons for helping out, because he wants his soul back for given the accidental resurrection, but still he was willing to work with the League to stop these creatures, even sacrifice his own life. Now, I didn't know at the time, but the way the roster was with Dr. Fate, Aquaman, Grundy, and even Hawkgirl was kind of similar to a group from Marvel called the Defenders, which had Doctor Strange, Namor, Hulk, and Nighthawk. So a nice little Easter egg reference. Still though, I did not think I would actually feel bad for a villain, especially for them to sacrifice their own lives. Even for Hawkgirl to cry over Grundy's death, let alone bury him in a gravesite near the swamp where he was resurrected. It's a nice character growth for Hawkgirl, which of course we'll see more of in the finale. As for the last streaming episodes, Hereafter and Wildcards are definitely good standouts. For Hereafter, it deals with the death of Superman's story, just not with Doomsday, so to speak. It's kind of a bit of lazy writing for how could someone make a device that accidentally sends someone to the future? Sure, these mad scientist villains create all kinds of crazy stuff, but if you're gonna create a device that sends you into the future, so it destroys you, I would say double check on that before using it. But that goes with children's TV. You can't really kill off main characters like that, unless there's going to do a major change to the whole show. But still, it was nice to see that the Justice League, Superman's friends, family, and even Lex Luthor offering condolences for the loss of the Man of Steel. Though I definitely like the humor when they brought in Lobo as a replacement Superman, so to speak. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in the comics, Lobo has joined the League on a couple of occasions. I'll probably confirm with the Watchtower database on that question. But still, having Lobo in the mix was a treat, especially for him tackling against the League members. But once we got to see that Superman's alive and well, we really see how he's going to handle himself without powers. For I guess in the distant future, the sun's become red, so Superman's without powers. But unlike the time he lost his powers to Luminous, we get to see Superman really rely on skills and training he probably picked up on the farm. Because sometimes when I think of Superman, I figure like, if he's without powers, then he's probably going to be sitting duck until someone rescues him, but not in this story. Able to fix up a car, fend off against ferocious beasts, make a nice little fur cape to keep him warm and everything. Like, I would say he definitely earned some badges. And another bad guy surprise is Vandal Savage survives in this distant future and is actually willing to help him and is actually friendly to Superman. And that's what's so crazy about this show, that even for some of the bad guys, they have character development. For Vandal, he always believed he had this destiny that he is born to rule because of his immortality. But it shows that no one's special. No one's destined to be a ruler of the whole world. Not even an immortal one. Now, as for Wildcards, this was a pretty good Joker episode. Probably his most dangerous plot in the DCAU. Although what really threw me off was he never laughed once in this two-parter. And that struck me as weird because he usually laughs in his appearances. I mean, he's the Joker. I mean, why not laugh? But that's just a minor thing. As for a plot, it's pretty well thought out. What starts off as a bomb scare in Las Vegas, it's all just a stunt on relying on people's desire to always see crazy events happen on TV. For Joker reveals that despite the bombs, he has his own group of powerful henchmen, the Royal Flush Gang. Which I think is a nice touch that someone like Joker would create this gang. For they're all cards in the deck. Even the fact that the voice cast for this Royal Flush Gang is the original Teen Titans voice cast. For this is probably the closest we'll get to a crossover between the two series, and I love it. The biggest surprise is probably for Ace's powers, because I feel like they're definitely building up for something. But for Joker's plan to drive millions of viewers mad by looking at her, that's pretty something. Though the biggest surprise in that one is that Joker is afraid of her. He stated that he is probably immune to her powers since he's already crazy, but not as crazy as you might think. Because if he has a control band for her, then that shows that he has some sanity left. Plus, it goes a tribute to the theory that Joker is not really insane, just faking it so he won't get the death penalty. I say this story definitely might confirm that theory. But once Ace realized it, she gave no mercy and left him in a drooling state. Of course, being Joker, he always finds a way to get out of it, for this still takes place before Ron J. How he escapes from that, we'll never know probably. And this is probably the second to last moment for the Green Lantern Hawkgirl relationship to really develop further. Because at this point, John is wondering where they're going to go with this. Are they going to actually be something or just stay as friends? This is also the first time we get to see what Hawkgirl's like beneath her helmet. And I gotta say, she definitely looks very attractive. I swear, these DCAU writers, they definitely have a thing for redheads. I mean, look how Barbara's drawn, Poison Ivy, Andrea Beaumont, they're all redheads and have complicated relationships. Which now leads to the finale, Star-Crossed. I say in terms of Justice League, this is definitely one of the biggest finales I've ever seen with the show. This is probably closest to the conclusion of the Cadmus arc, but here this one is probably more crazy of how dangerous everything is, where loyalty and feelings are really put to the test. Mostly with Hawkgirl, for she finds her people, for it turns out she was a spy trying to learn about Earth, for the Thanagarians say they want to help against their enemies, the Gordanians. But it's all just a ruse, for they need Earth to complete a hyperspace pathway in order to defeat the Gordanians once and for all, but the process of this would destroy Earth. Of course, the League wouldn't go for that, but before they could do anything, they got captured, for Hawkgirl provided enough intel on how to neutralize the League with their weaknesses. So it really puts Hawkgirl in a difficult position, but once she realized the truth of what they're doing, she had to pretty much abandon her people, especially for the leader, Protalic, who is also her fiance, so to speak. But in a way, it realistically shows that war can change people, because before she left, she made it seem like he's the kind of man that would not make such grand sacrifices, that he would find another way, but people change, unfortunately, not always for the best. Of course, this all is part of the relationship drama, where now there's a love triangle, and they've had to make something where it leads back to Green Lantern and S.T.A.R, but I'll say in this moment that's pretty much donezo for a while, given the betrayal to the League. Still, of course, being the Justice League, they always find a way to escape, but they really had to make big decision moments, especially when it comes to everyone now knowing everyone's secret identities. We'll see with Batman, Superman, and the Flash, because two of them were the only ones that actually wore masks. And it was pretty cool to see their fights, especially in the Batcave. And of course, that wouldn't be complete without Alfred's funny one-liners. I think my favorites with the whole, and I thought Batman was the detective. And pretty badass of Batman to sacrifice his life while using the Watchtower as kind of like a big bomb to destroy the hyperspace bypass. The only problem I have is, why do that though? I mean, I get that not everyone would watch all these DC shows, but if he's gonna be alive in Batman Beyond, then why put Batman in such a dire situation? He's gonna survive, then what's the point? But still, that's just a small thing. But it was a hollow victory, for Hawkgirl has pretty much become a social pariah and decided to quit the League because she doesn't want to put her friends in a difficult position when it comes to choosing their feelings or their responsibilities. Of course, we know that for Jean and Flash, they would welcome her back, but Batman and Wonder Woman, not so much, for they definitely shown that they don't trust her anymore. Superman kind of in the middle, for he's been in a similar position, but still the decision was made. Though of course, the League's not done. Especially with the Wayne funds, they can definitely be able to rebuild, as evidenced in Justice League Unlimited. So that's pretty much what I have to say for the show, because they did good for connecting back to previous DC shows with bringing back some characters, some earlier plot points. But they made it so as a way you wouldn't be so confused, that you don't have to really watch all these shows to understand what's going on in Justice League, that any newcomer will get it. The voice cast was excellent. Having Kevin Conroy back as Batman, I mean, they were originally going to have Tim Daly back, but due to scheduling conflicts, they had to find a new actor, and George Newbern was definitely a good choice. Not only can he do a pretty classic Superman voice, he can do one where he's evil or angry and vengeful. The rest of the voice cast definitely became fan favorites of mine, with Susan Eisenberg, Michael Rosenbaum, Phil Lamar, Carl Lumbly, and Marie Canals. For many of them got to reprise their roles in later projects, especially in the Injustice franchise. And really the show became a big impact for DC in other TV shows, movies, for how they utilized certain plot points for Wonder Woman in the 2017 movie, having the Martian Manhunter become a bigger deal in other formats such as Supergirl, Smallville, and in other Justice League anime movies. Not to mention recently the S.T.A.R. cut. If you either got the DVDs, Blu-ray, or an HBO Max account, definitely take a look at this series, whether you're an old fan or a newcomer. And I say that concludes today's episode. Thank you all for being a part of this. This is Bean Entertainment, signing off.